What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball, New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrick Raphel. What's poppin' with you, bro?
What up, bro? Everything's all good on this end, man. The city's thawed out finally after their the snowmageddon. The city has finally thawed out and things have gotten a little bit back to normal as normal as we can be these days. But yeah, man, everything's all good on this side. Ready for I'm already seeing things around the city change for the Super Bowl, and it doesn't feel good knowing that like the team that you rooted for that's in the city, their season was over like in a couple months ago. And so now you get to see like all of these different like things up on the billboards, and they painted the bridge columns with Super Bowl stuff on it. And it just bothers me because I know there's going to be so many happy fans here in the city of New Orleans, and none of them will be Saints fans. And so it is, it's a bittersweet thing because the city about to get somebody in, but it's like, like I got to be reminded about what's going on or what's not going on in the city as far as my football team. But nah, man. Other than that, everything's all good. Obviously, the city has thawed out and the Pelicans have frozen up, so that's here. Give or take, trade in tomato. But on the other side, Mardi Gras is coming near, so the city is, lit up for that and everything. So, man, everything's good. Man. How's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed. Yeah, things are starting to shake back into focus. You said that there's going to be a lot of happy fans in the city. Patrick Mahomes Sr. will be in the city, so he will be going buck wild for his son and everything that entails. I don't really know
if that's a good thing.
but yeah, man, the NBA is kicking off. New Orleans' own De'Aaron Fox is saying he's open to a trade. Like, we are 9 days away from the trade deadline. I honestly don't have really big expectations for the trade deadline. Just this new CBA makes it so hard for moves to be made that I feel like people are getting their hopes up that it's just not going to happen. But we will dive into those things and everything that entails, and the Pelicans flopping the other direction here in a second. Before we do, make sure you guys follow us on X, on Twitter, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO_basketball, no E. Make sure you're liking the episode below, and if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the page, New Orleans Basketball. So last week, got on the pod. We talked about the Pelicans being on a hot streak, winning 4 in a row, beating the Sisters of the Blind and things like that. This week,
not so much.
Not so much. So start off with Memphis. You think you're finally going to – it's crazy that Ja and Zion and Luka and now Wemby are all – and I guess now Amen Thompson are all in the same division, but you almost never get to see Zion versus Ja, Zion versus Luka. They play tomorrow. Luka's not playing. They started the week this week. The Pelicans playing versus the Grizzlies. You thought you were getting Ja versus Zion. You got neither one. So
not one of them.
you started this week and you say, okay, Ja's out. Zion's not going to play this one. He's sick. The Pelicans lose in blowout fashion. They played absolutely no defense at all. The week after coming off playing hounding defense, they played none at all. Then you go to Charlotte and a back-to-back. It looks like it was a back-to-back, even though both teams had a back-to-back and one had to travel, one didn't. It looked like it. There was no defense in that one. And then you go to Toronto yesterday and you play defense, but you couldn't score outside of Zion. So the struggles are starting to creep back up, right? Like the lack of chemistry, the lack of a consistent identity where night in and night out, you know what you're getting from the team and you know what they're going to bring regardless if shots are falling or not from that end. So the Pelicans start losing again. They've got to, turn things around from a 3-game loser streak from that standpoint. But, and you and I have talked about this, you have to kind of change how you're watching the rest of the games this season. I think the Pelicans have 35 games left in the season, and you have to kind of change how you're watching the team because the likelihood that they make the playoffs or the play-in is extremely low. So you're looking for, okay, what type of chemistry, what type of development, what type of next step can your team make together? Can the Pelicans make together as you go down the rest of this stretch? Zion, I think this might be, and I know this sounds crazy, but I think this might be the best you are seeing of Zion. And what's crazy about it is that he's been on a minutes restriction, what we'll get to, but he looks the part of a superstar since returning from this injury from no longer are you questioning, like, are you going to get effort on every play? Like, he's beating people down the court. He's a hound on both ends of the floor. And like, this is what people have been waiting to see from a star of his caliber. Obviously him being on the court, but the talent and how it transcends to so many parts of the game out of just scoring. You're starting to see more consistently every time Zion steps foot on the court. So what's impressed you the most, even though the Pelicans have lost this week? What's impressed you the most so far of their young superstars?
Yeah, it has been a season of, to borrow a line from again the Saints organization, a season to look beyond the results, because this, it's when we talk about the Pelicans, and one of my favorite quotes, one of the favorite quotes we say out here is that only a Sith deals in absolutes. And there's half the Pelicans fan base that say, look, tank, lose every single game, whatever the case is. Then you got people on the other side like myself who say, look, just play the game, see what you can answer, and get the answers that you could get. Well, if you look at the Pelicans, they are doing that. They're doing both, right? They're putting people out there and playing, but they're losing. So, like, you're getting a bet of both worlds, right? You're only dealing with, not dealing with absolutes. And so, talking about Zion, there is one, right? Like, I think the two things that impressed me with Zion, the first one really is that the fact that he's doing all of this with the minutes restriction. I think the efficiency, the efficiency that you need in order to put up this stat line in that amount in that certain amount of time like that, that's superstar stuff. Like, you have to be efficient, you have to be dominant and give out that energy in order to put up those minutes, those in that time frame, the amount of stats and points and just sheer stat sheet stuff that he does, for on a night-to-night basis. But I think the thing that impresses me most, and I think I know what you're gonna come up with, so I'm gonna talk about something else, is his feel for the game is starting to look like somebody, starting to look veteran-ish, right? Like, he's reading defenses. I think some of the more fun things that I like to watch Zion do is that when he's at the top of the floor and he faces the goal, and people go to double team him, he's reading the double team before the double team has started to come to him, and so he's whipping passes to people like as the second defender is taking the step over. So he's not even giving the defender times to think outside of that, and make a play on the ball. There are times where, like, they'll miss a shot, Zion to get the rebound, and a lot of times we've seen him go up for his double jump, which is second to none. Obviously, him and Amen Thompson got us something with the second jump. But there are times where he'll kick it out and he'll seal like the defender, and then he'll point to the rim. And then, that's when the entry passes, which the Pelicans are still awful at, but the entry passes come. But the fact that you're thinking that way, right? Instead of going up and going over two people, let me kick the ball out to the top of the key, repost, get everybody set back up because they think the ball is out, and then I'm back to a repost. In front of the defender, you throw it over my head. It's easy too. The same 2 points you would have gotten had you had fought over 3 or 4 people. His touch around the rim, he's learning to, like, move out of the way of defenders and hit people with the up and under, where his touch is second to none, right? AD mentioned it yesterday about how great his touch is, and that is a skill. Like, it looks easy when he and like Kyrie and guys do that, but to have that kind of understanding of English off the ball and where to locate and how to get around defenders as they're swinging for the ball, I think that's a skill that he's learning and mastering, and I think that's going to prolong his this streak of him not getting injured because she's not hitting the ground as much if you notice. And I think the third and final thing I said too, but the third and final thing I'm really excited about Zion is that he's not taking bullshit anymore from the refs, from other people. Like he was always known as this kind of like nice guy, and you see it on the floor. He dresses in anime stuff. He likes anime. He quotes anime cartoons, and so people have this kind of thing towards him, and he doesn't get officiated fairly. I think everybody can agree and see that. Shout out to Ms. Abuida, because she was definitely letting the refs know yesterday in Toronto. But I think that you have to tap into that when you get on the floor, especially when you're such a physical guy. You're getting beat. You've seen them getting texts. You've seen them talking trash to people. You've seen them like telling people things on the floor that not safe for work. But like those are the kind of things. Again, not every superstar has to be like that, right? Tim Duncan was not like that. Right. There are guys who can do it, without all of that. But when you're this like athletic freak and you're more dominant than people, like it's okay to get a little KG, a little Shaq sometime and talk trash and let people know, that this is not gonna fly in this time. And he doesn't get officiated fairly, and I think it's time for him to start letting the refs know about it. And you're starting to see it. And what I like most about it is that he gets back into the play. Even though he might let the fans have, the refs have it, let the opposing team has it. It doesn't go into like what you see from Luka, right? Where the play gets ahead of him and now he's completely out and he gets back and defends. So I think there's just a lot of things that Zion is coming into when you talk about maturity on the floor, right? Playing on the floor and the game growing and aging and he learning some things, tricks of the trade. And I think it's only going to get better. And the fact that he's doing it in a minutes restriction, I think it proves just how efficient he is and how much of a game changer he is. And if hopefully God will it soon get this minutes restriction taken up. Even if you ask him about it, I think you'll start to see even more production out of Zion, because I think he's starting to round into that player that you see night in, night out as being the superstar, the alpha on the floor.
Right. You talk about the points per production and minutes and things like that. He's got 3 straight games where he has more points than minutes. 31 points in 28 minutes, 28 points in 26 minutes, 24 points in 22 minutes. Last year, 2 years ago before Embiid got hurt, he was scoring a point a minute. That was good for MVP. Like, again, the biggest knock on Zion has not been his on-court play. It's been getting on the court. And if he's doing stuff like that, to your point, what does that look like as you add minutes to it and you add meaningful games to it? Something tells me it looks pretty good. There's a couple of things that stand out to me outside of the stats and things like that. He's starting to attack the boards the way that the Pelicans need him to attack the board. Like, Zion plays the 4 just from a power forward naming convention standpoint, even though I think he plays the game more like a guard anyways. But if he's going to play the 4, he's undersized from a height perspective. So you've got to be able to capitalize that in other ways, right? And part of that is using your God-given ability to go attack the boards, because if you're the 4, that means the people that are 1, 2, and 3 are probably smaller than you. And so if you're not getting the board and Eves is 19 years old, 20 years old, fighting against grown men, the likelihood of you getting the rebound in that position is probably not high. And so his attention to detail in that area, I think, is important. Shaq has called him out for that. He's like, every night you should have a double-double. And I kind of agree. I think that there's no reason, especially off of his offensive rebounding ability, when you combine that and his ability just to go get the ball on defense, there's no reason why Zion should not average a double-double anytime he's on the floor, right? And so I think that part stands out to me. There was something in the game versus Toronto that really stood out to me, and I think, again, it's kind of a microcosm of all of these things playing together. There was a couple possessions in a row, and AD called it out on the broadcast, where Zion just didn't touch the ball. And, of course, the Pelicans did not score. The next time down on defense, Zion gets a stop, gets the rebound, and then dribbles the ball down the court, coast to court, 2 points, nobody touches him. Like, we talked about this with Trey Murphy early in the year. If there's times when guys are not getting the ball, sometimes you just got to go get it on your own, right? And if Zion's got a full head of steam, and this is also the thing that I'm noticing in the last couple games, if he's got a full head of steam, whether it's in transition, whether it's not, if there's not a wall in front of him, I'm gonna live with whatever the results are of Zion going full court from the half court part and you not putting him body in front of him. Either he's going to score or he's going to get to the free throw line or both. And I'm starting to see that more and more where he's looking and scanning the court and saying, there's not enough guys back there to stop me, and I'm just going to take off. And so that is a big part of his game that has lacked even when he's been on the court, that I think he's starting to tune in a little bit more. And it probably has something to do with the type of shape that he's in and conditioning that he's in, that he has the energy to give it both on that end, on the boards, and then to take it the other way. The other part, which you alluded to, and you know I'm going to talk about it. We talked about it this offseason. Regardless if Zion adds the jumper, which you're starting to see him shoot, whether he adds the three-point shot, which you're starting to see him shoot more of, I always thought that Zion, the biggest aspect of Zion that we've missed so far outside availability is what he can do on the defensive end. And Garrick, like in the month of January, he's averaging damn near 2 blocks and 2 steals a game. This is what Zion can do. Like we talked about it before. He has every single attribute that you want out of a powerful and impactful defender, and he's starting to showcase that. Like you can not only can you feel Zion's presence when he leaves the court on offense, you can feel it on defense too, because all of a sudden it's a lot easier for guys like Julius Randle and like RJ Barrett to bully their way to the goal. But when Zion's there, you're not bullying Zion. Right. And so he gives you a matchup versus the Jaylen Browns of the world where people just try to out physical you that you just don't have. Even Herb Jones, you just don't have on the roster anywhere else. Guys that have that PJ Tucker type build that can guard that type of offensive weapon. And so he's starting to utilize that. He's starting to lean into that. And you want to see more and more. You talked about the tanking piece, and we talked about that last pod. I don't think there's any world where you have a healthy Zion Williamson and Trey Murphy and DeJounte and all those players with 35 games to go. And you're like, never mind. We want to get this top 5 pick. We don't really care what what it looks like to finish the season. You got to figure some stuff out. Like the first part of the season, none of these guys are available. So you have no idea what to do with your team until you see them get some games underneath their belt and starting to grow. And for Zion, who's missed so much time, to go to him and be like, well, 1, you're going to start on minutes restriction. And then 2, we're going to pick some games where you're just not playing and we're just going to just tank the rest of the season. I think that's a hard sale for a player who's looking like he's trying to get himself to the right place and stack some things on top of one another. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some caution being put in. Like, if you're not 100%, you're not 80, 90%, do you really need to go that night? I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But if you're available and you are healthy enough to play, I just don't see a way where the team can say, nah, you're not going to play from here on out. So, that's Zion. That's the results so far. A couple of things that have like stood out to me just from the games themselves. The Pelicans have like been really slow to start games. Like a lot of times in the first quarter, they've already been punched in the mouth. And like sometimes in the third quarter, they get punched in the mouth and the game is out of hand very quickly. Like in the first quarters, their average margin is negative 2.5 points. That's 27th worst in the NBA. Like last season, they were 3rd best with a plus 2.3 points. Like in third quarters, they're negative 2.9 points in the NBA. Also 27th worst in the. So like these are 2 quarters where teams like try to get a lead, try to build momentum, try to get some something going so that they can put you away early. And the Pelicans are just not doing well or excelling in these areas outside of just the injuries and things like that. What do you think is the cause of this? Like, do you think it's it's just people aren't available, or do you think there's more there?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can look at the product on the floor and look at who's available and how long these guys have been available and what has gone on throughout the season, right? This season already feels like it's been 10 years long. Like it feels if there was a time where like nobody was available other than Brandon Ingram and Zion. I don't know if anybody remembers that time, but that was a time where it was Brandon Ingram, Zion, and like Jeremiah Robinson Earl and Jamal Cain and all of those guys. It was like, go get them. So that was a time that was a while ago. And so you came into this season already not having chemistry on the offense or the defensive side of the ball with the majority of the guys on your roster. You came into the season with that, right? So the thought process in the beginning of the season was that they would, with DeJounte now on board and a healthy Zion and a healthy Brandon Ingram, while they're figuring things out, the talent would get them the wins, right? So you're figuring things out, and that's why you're not blowing this team out. But at the end of the game, you got Brandon Ingram, you got Zion, you got Trey, you got CJ, you got DeJounte, you got all of these guys. So you'll figure it, the talent will figure itself out at the end. That's how you'll get your wins. But you'll still need to figure some stuff out. Well, at the beginning of the season, none of that from day one. From game one, Zion wasn't there. And then DeJounte broke his hand and was out for God knows how long. And then Herb was out, and then CJ was out. So you really never got an opportunity still to get any cohesion offensively. And when you play, the Wizards and the Jazz and guys and teams who are actively looking to lose, so they don't, it's not just so much of what you do at the, in the game for those teams, it's the practices and stuff. Like those teams they're not trying to win. So they're not even coming in with the right focus into the games and stuff, because they're just trying to get out there and get to the end of the season and cash in on a draft pick. So you can beat those guys when you just get enough of Zion and enough of DeJounte and stuff, and it looks good against those teams, right? And then you step up and you play, teams like Memphis, who, even though they don't have Ja Morant, like that's a team that's got the deepest bench in the league, and one of the deepest benches in the league, has a cohesive unit together. Their coach has been there for a while. You go running even into Charlotte, like you run into Charlotte, and Charlotte is not a team that is good or anything, but they have LaMelo, and they have a guy that's like, they have their system. LaMelo, a bunch of threes, and Miles Bridges, like they have their system. And so those guys have been there together for a while, right? And you get to Toronto, they're not trying to win either, but they won 3 out of 4 games in a row coming into that game. So they had hit some strides. So you get to teams that are like playing well, and you run into situations where when you start games, that chemistry that's not there, it starts to show more, right? Like you're not getting the ball to Zion for 3 possessions. That should never happen, right? That in a cohesive unit, I cannot imagine Giannis not touching the ball for three straight possessions. I can't imagine Luka just not touching the ball for 3 possessions while he's on the floor. I can't imagine Jason Tatum not touching the ball for 3 possessions while he's on the floor. But those guys that's coaching, that's instillment into those things. And so when you don't have that kind of cohesiveness, and you don't have the proper focus on executing the things that make you great, you get behind really quickly, and now you're into you're into predictable offense. You're trying to chuck up threes and get into shooting matches with teams who got guys who that's what they want to do. Let's get up and down and shoot. And so now you're behind. And the same thing goes for third quarters. You come out without that requisite focus, and before you know it, you down 10, 11 points, and you're chasing points the entire second half, and you can't catch up because the shots aren't falling. You're relying on the thing that you aren't great at. You're relying on that to get you back into games. And so, I think for the Pelicans, they have to come out. If Zion is gonna play, like when the game starts, tip the ball. You have to make it a point to go to Zion first 3 possessions of the game. He has to touch the ball at least the first 3 possessions, and probably he should shoot 2 out of the 3 because they're gonna double him the third time because he's gonna make the first 2. So you need to start establishing that as an identity, and stop letting CJ and DeJounte shoot these mid-range and these 3-pointers that end up in long rebounds where Eves is fighting for his life down there, and then everybody's back running on defense, and before you know it, he's there at the rim easily. So they have to establish, if Zion these are what we talk about finding answers to questions. Every single game that Zion plays should be, okay, what's the next step in his development. We're going to Zion the first 3 possessions of the game. Can you handle it? Can you put us on the board the first 3 possessions of the game? What's the defense look like after we go to you 3 possessions to start the game? After 3 games, let's see how that 14 defends you on the first 3 possessions. Can you play out of that? Like, those are the type of things that you should be doing and establishing for Zion moving forward. And it just seems like there's too many times where the Pelicans get into, all right, one screen doesn't work, dribble handoff, contested 3-point or 2-point shot. Insert any player, right? I could insert CJ there. I could insert DeJounte there. I could insert Jose there, Jordan Hawkins. Like, all of them, they all do the same exact thing, if that one screen doesn't work. You have to start establishing an identity on offense, and it starts with the best player on the team who puts up in ridiculous numbers in 20 minutes. You need to establish him early, let him play, off of him early, so that you're not trying to chase points, because now you don't have the prerequisite, the requisite weapons. If Trey isn't hitting and if CJ is not going for 50, like, you don't have guys, you don't have the guys outside of Zion to get those shots off and catch up with those teams behind the 3 ball. And so you're chasing, and that's how you end up shooting 18% from the 3-point line, because you're just chucking them up and not getting them to your best player.
Right. I agree. And again, part of this is Zion's fault, because he hasn't been on the court, so they haven't been able to establish this around him. And so now you throw him back in here, then every other game he's out for sickness or not playing back-to-backs and things like that. And so people are like, okay, well, how do we get in a rhythm when every other game we don't have our best player, right? And so part of it is that. But I agree with you, like, you should use these next 35 games to figure out how you're going to operate as a team moving forward. And part of that is playing through your main guys. Again, one of your guys is still on the bench. Your main defensive player is also on the bench right now. And so that's hard to do. But to your point, especially if Zion's going to be on a minute restriction, if he's on the court, he needs to touch the ball every single possession until they whistle him out. I think part of just I guess at least in January, part of the rust, or part of the first quarter lulls where they get down by so much, is he gets going. He alluded to this, like he kind of talked about the frustration. He gets going, or he starts the game like LeBron used to start the game, assisting and like reading the defense to figure out, okay, how am I going to attack and how am I going to get my teammates involved? And then immediately he gets whistled out. So then, like, right when he's starting to get a rhythm, right when the team's starting to figure stuff out, he's out. And then they're like, okay, we're going back to what we were doing before. And now you're down 13 in the first quarter. Like, I think it's messing up everybody with that. And I get the abundance of caution when it comes to Zion and when it comes to the injuries and things like that. But you got to figure some stuff out along the way.
I don't understand the abundance of caution with Zion for this season, because what happens if he gets hurt? You're just gonna you're not in the playoffs anyway. So like, that's always been my thing, is like, yeah, this you can't play him that way, because you're not doing anything, right? Like, if he's gonna he got hurt before the season started. He got hurt. We've seen him hurt midway through the season, like the Philadelphia. We all know about the Philadelphia pull-up in injury. He got injured right before the playoffs started against the Lakers. So it doesn't matter if you want to, we're just going to play him a couple of minutes here and there and whatever the case is. If he's going to get hurt, he's going to get hurt. You cannot function as a basketball team going into every single game and every single stretch of games or whatever, saying our best player can't play more than 25 minutes because he might get hurt. Because he could also get hurt working out in the offseason, or he could also get hurt playing 70 games and get right into knocking on the door to the playoff. You can't. And I just feel like if you're gonna get questions answered for this season, because this season, results are not going to be the thing for this season. If you're going to get questions answered, he has to play, because he is the center point of all of this. If he can't play more than 20 minutes without everybody on the side, biting their nails like this, you got another problem altogether moving forward. So it's this is my soapbox. I'm gonna step up on my soapbox. It's just this season is lost anyway when it comes to success on wins and losses. If to me, it doesn't make any sense, and it just, if anything, pisses Zion off more and puts more bad PR and more bad ill will in the fan base and from other people watching. Say, oh, look, they don't even let Zion play 24 minutes. That's all Pat McAfee talk about. That's all serious. That's all they be talking about is, oh, well, Zion didn't play more than 20 minutes. Zion's fault. He's out of shape. He's fat and all. And then you look at it like, oh, he got 26 points in 20 minutes. Let him play. Just let him play.
I mean, and again, the Pelicans rebuttal to that would be, well, didn't we just talk about how he looks the best of all time and it's working? And it's like, okay, but you're not winning games. And so you still need to figure stuff out from there. But I think the slow starts and I think the third quarter thing has been a problem for years. And again, the game versus the Raptors is like a perfect microcosm of it. The Pelicans go down like 15, 17 and a half. Zion comes out with it on his mind, and all of a sudden they're leading to go into the fourth quarter because he has that type of control over a game and things like you just want to see more of it from that standpoint. So speaking of seeing more of things, Yves Missi, who, again, we talked about at the beginning of the season, we talked about leading up until 2025 began, how he was the leading candidate of the Rookie of the Year race. Since then, it's kind of backed off a little bit. It's kind of treaded a little bit. You've seen Stephon Castle kind of stepping his game up in a lot of ways. You see other players around the league kind of taking that next step, Alex Sarr and things like that, and really competing for that Rookie of the Year contest. Let me ask you this. If you look at January, you look at December and November, things like that, his numbers are down across the board, rebounds, minutes, points, and things like that. Do you think if it's more of a rookie lull for Yves, who, by the way, congratulations, just got named to the Rising Stars game? It seems like the Pelicans get a Rising Star every single season. And never mind, I don't want to talk about front office, but seems like they're doing something good. Do you think is it more of a rookie lull because this is more games than he played in college? Or do you think it's, again, the team having to reacclimate to him because a lot of these people didn't play with Yves to start the season?
Well, first thing I'm going to say is thank God that he's made the Rising Stars, because the last rookie center that didn't make the Rising Stars game, he went to Instagram and he let the NBA know about it. Shout out to Jackson Hayes. So thank God that he made it, because
someone tell me Yves is not quite as brash.
I don't know. You see Yves TikTok, man? Right, he's living in TikTok, but hey, shout out to Yves, man. Yeah, listen, man, the NBA season is long, man. It is. I think that's the one thing that, a lot of people who come into the league, they always talk about, like, rookies and guys coming to the league. What's one of the things has been the hardest for you to adjust to? And most guys, would say, man, playing 82 games it's a lot, right? Like, the college basketball season is not that long. They do not play that many games, nearly that many games. And that's with the tournament included, right? You don't even come close to like 40, 50 games. Right. And so now you're asked to play, 2 and 3 games a week and back-to-backs and traveling across the country and in some cases going into Canada and places. So, it's just a lot, right? And I think, with the what we've seen from, like, other rookies has kind of, I want to say desensitized, but like it's you don't get Victor Wembanyama's ever all the time, right? And Paolo Banchero's, who's like the rookie of the number one pick at the beginning of the season and like the rookie of the year all the way through, and then like is either the rookie of the year or the runner up at the end of the season. This rookie of the year race travels up and down the way it is, right? Like we've seen, guys who were not at the, in the running. Alex Sarr, nobody talked about Alex Sarr, for the first couple of weeks, and now he's second. And Stephon Castle now got an opportunity to play more, and now he's gotten his name on there. And then, Yves was a victim of circumstance, but he was also like he also benefited from circumstance, right? When Daniel Tice went down and and there was no other big guys, like he got thrust in and had to play, and he played well, right? But what that does is a lot of that energy and production and stuff that would have been spanned out and spanned out over games got mushed together in that time. So you saw him balling out, right, getting double doubles, and you saw him looking like a steal, right? And then as the season gets longer, you banging with Jokic every night, and then guess what? After Jokic is Alperen Şengün, and after Alperen Şengün, guess what? Here's Zach Edey, and after Zach Edey, guess what? Here's the Nikola Jokic again, and then there's Cat coming down the like you. It is a grind every single day, and I think that some of that has just gotten to Eves, right? He's gotten, bullied a little bit, pushed out the way, and things like that. And I think that's just him, his body, his skill set, his energy level not being adjusted to the NBA grind all the way. I still think Eves is one of the bright spots of this season. I think that he is a guy that you keep on your roster for a long, long time. I think the Pelicans absolutely found him one. He's still blocking shots at a ridiculous clip, and doing the things that you would love to see if the team was fully healthy, right? If he didn't score any points or score like whatever points he scored versus Toronto, but he had, blocks and rebounds and was doing the things you were supposed to do. Had you had Brandon Ingram and Herb and all of those guys, and you didn't go through the scoring laws that you had, like even when he was killing and putting up double doubles, it was like 10 points, 11 points. Like he had some 20 and 10s in there, right. But most of the times it was 10, 12, 14 points. It wasn't like he was, scoring 20 a game every single game. But I think without, the firepower, that's on the bench, and then also the team having a off game last night against Toronto. I think him not scoring or scoring very few points, I can't remember if he didn't score or whatever. I think that kind of jumped off the page a little more, especially last night. And so I just think it's a long season for the rookie, and I think he's just got to get his second win. I think this Rising Stars All-Star break will do him some good. He'll be able to catch his breath a little bit, and hopefully the Pelicans will have, maybe not, we'll see, some more people available at that point in time. And I think, he'll get back into it. But for me, it's just a long season for the rookie. And I think that's starting to get to him a little bit. And I think he just needs some more time to get his second win underneath him.
Yeah, the thing I look at is when Zion was out and when Brandon Ingram was out, outside of Trey Murphy, Eves was really the only person who could get to the rim. Like, it took DeJounte Murray a little bit to kind of get his rhythm and start attacking more downhill. And he's been doing that more and more the past couple games. But, like, really your only presence, the Pelicans were last in the NBA for, like, most of the first 2 months of the seasons at rim rate because no one else could score at the rim. And so you had to throw lives to Eves. You had to find ways to generate paint to great looks and things like that. And to some degree, I think that's helped Eves from a passing standpoint. Like he's already passing a lot better than I thought he was capable of passing in his rookie year. Like he's starting to do better in the short roll. He's starting to look out for the three and things like that. I think for Eves as a young player, especially now that he's surrounded with more talent, he's got to figure out what are his spots. What are the areas where I touch the ball, I got to score because I'm probably not getting it back, right, in other ways. And so part of that is that. I think the other part of it is I think the team needs to know just because Zion's back and things like that, there's still ways to find easy points at the rim for Eves, right? They get to the mid-range and things like that. When they draw the defender out, there's still a lob there at the rim that they weren't used to playing with JV and Billy Hernan Gomez and people like that in the past. And so I think that needs to be a part of the team moving forward and part of what you find out over the next 35 games. How can you incorporate that in? Because, again, every time Zion sits down, especially we know Brandon Ingram, it feels as if the offense is dribble around the three-point line and hope for something good to happen. And that just cannot be what you go through consistently because there are going to be times where Zion's out and other players are out, even if you go through healthy seasons. And you need to have other answers to the test. There needs to be other forms of offense outside of let's just run the same things that we always run anyways, even though we don't have the personnel on the court to do so. So I do believe that, Eves is probably going through those rookie lumps, but I think it'll be good for him in the long run. So we are 9 days away from the trade deadline, and things are popping out. I see it in the comments. They're like, "Yo, is De'Aaron Fox coming to New Orleans?" I don't see a way in which they could make that happen. I just don't see that happen. So
I don't see Sacramento wanting to trade for Brandon Ingram, and
I just don't see that happen.
Could you imagine? Just side note, could you imagine a team with like BI and DeMar DeRozan on it? Like it would. there would be that would be that. Keegan Murray, like it's I don't think it's happening. I don't see it happening. I liked De'Aaron Fox before when it was either De'Aaron Fox or CJ, and I was like, man, De'Aaron Fox would be great. You go check our record on that. I used to say that was what I wanted. I think the Pelicans did the right thing by getting CJ because he got Zion together and things, but I sure would have liked De'Aaron Fox here a couple of years ago, but I don't think it's something that's gonna happen. Unfortunately, sorry.
So DeJounte Murray on the second night of a back-to-back injured his hand the night before, and all of a sudden is not able to play, even though since returning from his first hand injury has not missed a game. Just so happened to miss that second night of a back-to-back and is probable for tomorrow, so it doesn't look like he's missing a game again. Well, missing that game allowed him to not hit the bonus mark for games played, so the Pelicans are even closer to the luxury tax and getting underneath it. With 9 days to go, Garrick, and with the season where the season is, what do you think is most likely to happen over these 9 days? Brandon Ingram gets moved, maybe CJ McCollum or other player gets moved, or there's a small move to get underneath.
I think you can say goodbye to fan favorite Daniel Tice or Jeremiah Robinson or Javonte Green. I think one of those three will be, plucked from the roster and they get underneath the tax. I've been saying it the whole season. I will still say it. I understand everybody's frustration with Brandon Ingram. I just want everybody to know that this is real life and that this is not NBA 2K, and you cannot override a trade, even if the other team does not want it. All right. You cannot call the Cavaliers and say, hey, Kobe Altman, how do you feel about Brandon Ingram for Jared Allen? He says no, and then you said, well, to hell with it. We're just going to go ahead and override that and happen anyway. We have gotten to a point where I think teams are looking, right, and they are seeing this cap crunch, and they are seeing, where they are. They're seeing this draft coming up and last draft and the next draft after that. And they are acting accordingly. And I think, the report that come out about Toronto being, in one to trade for Brandon Ingram, getting a Brandon Ingram business, interested in trading for Brandon Ingram. I will say that sounds great. It does. I just don't know why they would do that, especially with no guarantee that Brandon Ingram would re-sign there. And so whenever you see reports, remember that the agents have people too, right? And so they can call people and generate tweets and reports the very same way that, other teams can and the media reports them. So I don't think that BI is moved. Now, would it surprise me? Kinda, but not if somebody comes and swoops him in at the last second. But I just cannot see, as you look across the landscape, unless the Pelicans are in on this Jimmy Butler trade that's going to include the entire NBA, right? That's going to so Bill gonna go here and De'Aaron Fox gonna go there, and it's gonna look like your boy off the office, just point at stuff like okay, and unless they gonna be a part of that, and it's gonna be one of them 30 team trades, I just don't see the spot that is interested for BI. We talked about CJ, like CJ could be good in some of these places, but how many of them are willing to do that right now? In Detroit, how willing are they to do that? It's a team that I thought about with CJ. But I think when you look at the landscape of the NBA, I think the most likely thing is that they get rid of one of those, smaller contracts, get under the tax, and deal with the Brandon Ingram situation at the end of the season, where there'll be more teams, willing and able to do more business, and then the other teams will have more data from the playoffs and things like that, and they know what's going on at that point. So I think the most likely scenario for me is that they make the small trade and get underneath the salary tax. The luxury tax.
I would agree. If someone was going to trade for Brandon Ingram, what has changed between now and the offseason when everybody talked about trading for Brandon Ingram? Nothing except he's gotten more injured. So there's less for people to see and evaluate. So I just don't see it there. For the CJ's perspective, again, next year he's expiring, so I could see it then. And maybe there's a competitive team that's like, hey, we need another scorer, like Minnesota or something like that. We need some more scoring, stuff like that. We're willing to take a gamble here or there. Maybe it's that, but
Milwaukee.
like I struggle. Yeah, I struggle to see the team there. And so I agree with you. I think it's most likely they get underneath the tax, they play the season out. Next year, CJ's an asset for you that you can move if you want to do that. At that point, you figure it out with Brandon Ingram in the offseason, whether he stays, he goes, whatever ends up being from that end. And I think that's probably what happens. If you're a Pelicans fan and you're hoping for something crazy to happen in the next 9 days, I will pump the brakes a little bit. I just don't see the trade partners. I just don't see even David Griffin and his track record. Like, he's not trying to lose trades. Like some people, you see all these rumors, they'll attach her first to this and I don't think that's how they view CJ McCollum, regardless of what the market is telling you. And so I think it's more likely they'd be stubborn and not try to do a bad trade than they would just jump to make a move in this situation. So I just think that's unlikely, but we shall see. We have 9 days to go. I think there's a bunch of things and dominoes to happen around the NBA. But that being said, that's all we got for you today. The Pelicans play the Mavericks tomorrow night in the Smoothie King Center. What you got left for the people, guys?
Yeah. I just want to Bird coming here. We appreciate everybody sliding through. I want to just go ahead and address this real quick. Bird asks if do we still believe in the group, the front office, and the coach? And real quick, my response to that is that if the front office is not without fault, they've done things wrong. I agree. There are things, the Lonzo Ball trade, the Brandon Ingram trade, whatever, all that other stuff that you want to say that they did wrong. I look at other front offices. I look at front offices who have, championship ready teams. And I look at front offices that are bottom dwelling teams. And I look at both of those track records and say, okay, how many of those players did they draft? How many of those players, did they get in, or whatever the case is? And how hard is it to do that, right? And so when I think about the draft is so hard to hit on. Either teams who have a lot of chops at the apple, talking about Wizards, talking about Hornets, they have missed on a lot of drafts, right? Talking about bottom dwellers, even top tier teams. The Lakers have looked to replace, their guys through the draft, and they can't hit right. And other teams, the Bucks, are struggling to find anything outside of Dame and Chris Middleton and Giannis because they don't have any good draft players. And I look at the Pelicans, and I say that this team has hit the draft a bunch of times, right? Either through the draft picks, first round, second round, or undrafted. And I just don't know what other front office now could you have traded. Like, they made a trade for DeJounte Murray, like in a world where everybody stayed healthy, that would be looked at as a really good trade. With
Garrick,
those guys
when the trade was announced, the league was like, the Pelicans fleeced the Hawks. That's literally what the sentiment was.
Right. And so I don't know what else they could. The Brandon Ingram situation, maybe some other front office has the foresight to trade him after the playoff run that he had. I don't know. But I know that other front offices have stumbled and stubbed their toes a bunch of times, but they can't say that they have a Trey Murphy. They can't say that they have a Herb Jones, a Jose Alvarado, Yves Missi. Najee Marshall just got paid. And Jordan Hawkins, like they don't have that to back it up. Now they have other stuff that they fumbled and fumbled. Everybody thought, the 76ers won the offseason, right? They signed Joel and got Paul George, and they might not make the playoffs. So because of circumstances, they couldn't see that Joel injury. And the same thing with the front office. So the coaching situation is totally different. I think that there are things that Willie could have done better and could do better. Again, it's hard to parse through that because of the situation he's been given, but there are some things that I think he could have done better. So That I'm not with all of that. You know, I'm not with, you know, there are some things that he did right and some things that he did wrong. And yeah, the Pelicans are losing, but players aren't playing, and that's what I'm saying. And so I just don't know how the front office could put together. If you told me a team had DeJounte and CJ and Zion and Trey and Herb and Yves Missi, any other team, you ask any other team would they trade for any of those players, and they would all say yes. So, and I think all of those players would go play at other teams. They're just hurt, and again, it's a stupid answer. It's a dumb answer. It's the truth. Like, unless this team is healthy, they won 49 games last year. They're not healthy this season, and they're not winning 49 games this year. And whether that's, if you want to blow it up and trade and get other players and things and all that, that's fine. But I just don't know what else the front office could do, especially with the now the new CBA sitting in their lap, and they're not able to move with anybody. The whole league is locked up, gridlocked with trades. But sorry, I just want to get my soapbox. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My only thing, and we'll close the thing out, is show me the front offers that can solve for availability. Show me the front office that can say your two stars are on the court for less than 50% of the time, and you're still a top 4 seed. Point that front office out to me. I don't know how you solve for that as a front office. You can't force availability. You can draft as much as you can, but if you don't have those two polar planets on the court as much as possible, the likelihood that you have success is low. And I don't know the magic formula to that. So I'm curious for anyone that's listening, follow us and things like that can point out those front offices to me.
Tweet us. Let us know what you think, what moves the front offices could have made, and what other front offices you looking at that saying that's the kind of front office that the Pelicans need to be looking to remodel. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the tweets. With that being said, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO_basketball, no E. That's on Twitter, X, wherever you get your social media. Most importantly, subscribe to NewOrleans.basketball, and we'll see you guys next time.
Hey,